Johannesburg Property Company CEO Helen Botes is back at work after being suspended for 3 months. That's after she was implicated in tender irregularities for COVID-19 deep cleaning contracts worth 18 million rand. Botes' return comes despite the release of an SIU report into financial misconduct at the JPC. eNCA's Lindokuhle Xulu has more on this story. Lindo, thank you so much for making time. This CEO is faced with these allegations of corruption. She's now back on duty after being suspended. Just remind us of what the issues are with this story.
Well, I can tell you, Clement, that the SIU, the Special Investigating Unit, found that there was irregularities in terms of the issuing of a tender, which was to deep clean many public spaces in Johannesburg. You'd remember that when we went to alert level 5 of the lockdown, the first lockdown, rather alert level that we went to, there was no movement in terms of people going into different places because it was a hard lockdown that required everyone to stay at home to curb the spread of COVID-19. And during that time, entities of the Johannesburg city municipality were called together to come up with a plan of how to mitigate and deal with issues of COVID-19. The Johannesburg Property Company was one that was dealing with the cleaning of many facilities, including those that would not have had people such as taxi ranks and all of that. But the issuing of that tender, what we understand from the SIU, is that when they investigated, after there were whistleblowers saying that there was foul play in terms of the issuing of tenders, they then found that indeed from their side they are finding there are inconsistencies in terms of the issuing of those tenders, as well as the 18 million rand that was spent. So at this stage we understand that the SIU has compiled a report, has handed it over to the NPA as well as the City of Johannesburg to take disciplinary action against the CEO, who is now back at work because the suspension that she was under, which was 3 months, has lapsed. So legally she cannot remain at home without being charged. She has not been charged at this stage, but the SIU has given us a sense of what is it exactly that they found. Let's take a listen to Kaiser Ekhanyaho just giving us a sense of what their findings were in terms of that report.
We found that there was a problem in the tender processes that were followed, and that there were some officials that were complicit in those irregularities that we found in relation to the SCM process.
So that's what the SIU is saying, Lindo. What is she saying? I see that she's broken her silence today.
Well, for the first time, she has spoken to the media. She does say she wants to clear up her name in terms of what exactly happened. So, Clement, the SIU found that there were irregularities in terms of the issuing of the tender. But what we understand from the CEO today is that there was actually a circular that was issued by National Treasury to say that there can be deviations because there is a state of emergency that is currently happening, a state of a disaster because of COVID-19. So what they are saying is that, yes, they did not follow regular tender processes in terms of issuing out that tender, but they are saying that this deviation that they took was provided for by that circular and by some of the acts under the circular that was sent by Treasury, by National Treasury. So at the end of the day, they are saying that initially there was no need for them to actually follow tender processes because they were trying to, as soon as possible, clean the spaces so that when the 21 days that was stipulated in terms of the first hard lockdown had lapsed, then they would be able to hand over such spaces as taxi ranks and other public spaces without, in fact, having to, hand them over in terms of having hygiene concerns. So at the end of the day, they are saying that they did not need to actually follow tender processes because provisionally they were able to deviate from that because it was an emergency. And the second part, they are saying that at the time there was, in fact, no benchmarking in terms of the people who would be deep cleaning spaces, who would be sanitizing and disinfecting spaces. So at the end of the day, the prices is something that can be argued, but what they are calling for at this stage, the CEO as well as other executives, is to say they must have their day either in court or in a disciplinary process where they'll be able to explain all of these things. But at this stage, they're saying they haven't seen or haven't been party to any documents that are giving them a sense of of what the report is all about. But at this stage, they are saying that everything that was done was according to the law, and that everything that was done was necessary to mitigate against the virus at a time when there was uncertainty around how it spread. But let's take a listen to the CEO giving us a sense of the scope of work that was given to some of these companies to do.
In terms of law, we did not go out on tender. We did a deviation, and that's allowed in terms of Regulation 36 of the Act. Okay, it was an emergency. The team, the finance and supply chain team, sourced the suppliers from the National Treasury database. They were given a scope of work to do. They did that scope of work, and the scope of work was not just fogging. The scope of work was deep cleaning, sanitization, fogging, scrubbing of every single corner. We can show you some horrendous pictures of what the facilities looked like. And there was no way you were going to be locked down, leave the facilities in the state that it was, and allow the public to come back to a dirty facility. So certainly what the suppliers did was they did the work. According to the specifications that we gave them.